Good afternoon, and welcome to the Atlantic Council. My name is Matthew Kranig. I'm Vice President and Senior Director of the Atlantic Council's Scowcroft Center for Strategy and Security. We're honored today to welcome Ambassador Bonnie Jenkins, Undersecretary of State for Arms Control and International Security. In this key role, she leads 3 bureaus at the U.S. Department of State: the Arms Control Compliance and Verification Bureau, the International Security and Nonproliferation Bureau, and the Political Military Affairs Bureau. In addition, Secretary of State Anthony Blinken named her as the senior official to lead the department's efforts on AUKUS, the trilateral security partnership among Australia, the United Kingdom, and the United States, announced in 2021. It is this role that will be the focus of her discussion with us today. Convenings like this are central to the Scowcroft Center's mission of developing sustainable, nonpartisan strategies to address the most important security challenges facing the United States and the world. The Center honors General Brent Scowcroft's legacy of service and embodies his ethos of nonpartisan commitment to the cause of security, support for U.S. leadership and cooperation with allies and partners, and dedication to the mentorship of the next generation of leaders. With this mission in mind, it's only natural that we host this important discussion, since the establishment of AUKUS exemplifies U.S. leadership in cooperation with 2 of its closest allies. We look forward to hearing Ambassador Jenkins' insights on further developing and implementing the strategy for the AUKUS partnership. AUKUS is especially important given the worsening international security environment we face, globally, and particularly in the Indo-Pacific region. Globally, the United States and its friends and allies are beset by challenges. For the first time in its history, the United States will have to contend with 2 nuclear peer competitors, Russia and China, along with an emerging nuclear-armed adversary in North Korea. Further, even as we face Russian aggression in Europe against Ukraine and conflict in the Middle East, threats in the Indo-Pacific region are growing. Alongside its nuclear force expansion, China is rapidly improving its full range of military capabilities while escalating its threats and coercion toward Taiwan and against U.S. and allied activities in the region. We're now seeing a mounting risk of conflict in the Indo-Pacific, including, as we have documented in a recent Scowcroft Center report, even the potential need to deal with China and an aggressive North Korea simultaneously. The United States, Australia, and the United Kingdom have a common interest in deterring and defeating these threats, and AUKUS could be vital to our ability to do so. In a moment, I'll turn the floor to our Director of our Indo-Pacific Security Initiative, Marcus Garlauskas, to guide the discussion with Ambassador Jenkins. Marcus is a former senior U.S. government official with a long history of working closely with Australian and UK counterparts to understand and counter common threats in the Indo-Pacific. Before joining the Scowcroft Center, Marcus led the U.S. intelligence community's strategic analysis on Korea as the National Intelligence Officer for North Korea. This was after serving in Korea as the chief strategist for U.S. forces and for the multinational United Nations Command. Again, thank you all today for joining us for this important conversation. And without further ado, Marcus, I'll turn the floor to you.
Matt, thanks for that great introduction. So let me echo Matt's points. We're honored to be hosting Ambassador Jenkins for this very timely and very important discussion. So we have 1 hour for this session. So I'll begin with some more background on Ambassador Jenkins. Then I'll turn to her to provide her prepared remarks focused on AUKUS. We'll follow that with a few questions as the moderator. And then I'll go to the audience, both here in the room and the virtual one, for additional questions as time permits, and then we'll wrap up. The session, of course, it's on the record and is being broadcast live and recorded for viewing through ACTV. For those of you in the virtual audience, if you do have a question, you can enter your questions at askac.org. So, as I was saying in the green room, our guest today has such a distinguished career, it's hard to do it justice in a brief introduction. I feel like we could fill the whole hour just telling your story, your bio. But as Matt mentioned, Ambassador Jenkins serves as the Undersecretary of State for Arms Control and International Security, directing those 3 bureaus and also with the additional responsibility as state's lead for AUKUS matters. She previously served as Special Envoy and Coordinator for Threat Reduction Programs. Before serving as coordinator, she was a legal advisor to the U.S. Arms Control and Disarmament Agency, and also led diplomatic efforts to promote the Global Health Security Agenda, a group of 70 countries and organizations building capacity to deal with infectious disease threats. In addition, Ambassador Jenkins has distinguished experience outside of government. She was a non-resident senior fellow at Brookings Institution, a senior fellow at the Perry World House at the University of Pennsylvania, and a pre-doctoral fellow at Harvard's Belfer Center. She's worked at the Ford Foundation and the RAND Corporation. Member of the New York State Bar, she served as counsel on the National Commission on Terrorist Attacks upon the United States and as general counsel to the U.S. Commission to assess the organization of the federal government to combat the proliferation of WMD. Ambassador Jenkins also has notable experience as an educator. She's been an adjunct professor at Georgetown University Law School, Georgetown University School of Foreign Service, Hoya Saxa, Madam Ambassador, and George Washington Elliott School of International Affairs, and even advised students at Harvard Law School. Her own educational credentials are even more impressive. PhD in International Relations from the University of Virginia, an LLM in International and Comparative Law from Georgetown University Law Center, an MPA from the State University of New York at Albany, a JD from Albany Law School, and a BA from Amherst College. Last but not least, she's also a retired U.S. Naval Reserve officer with numerous awards for her military service. So with that, Madam Ambassador, I'm really looking forward to your comments, and I expect a very lively discussion to follow. Thanks so much for your valuable time.
Thank you. Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for that great introduction, Marcus, as well as the welcome, Matthew. It is truly a pleasure to be here at the Atlantic Council today. This has always been an institution at the forefront of security issues, so it feels fitting to be here having this conversation when not only our country, but as you heard, the world remain in such pivotal times. There is no question that we are facing monumental shifts in geopolitics, safety, and security. Whether it's the PRC's continued posturing alongside its rapid, opaque, and expansive military buildup, Russia's continued war against Ukraine and its dangerous nuclear rhetoric, the DPRK's escalatory and destabilizing actions, or issues of terrorism and violence against citizens. All make the world we do to improve arms control and deterrence, increase diplomacy, enhance stability, and search for strategically resilient routes to peace and prosperity increasingly important. Prosperity includes a world where all countries are empowered to make their own sovereign decisions, free from coercion and intimidation. While competitors use force, disinformation, tech theft, and coercion in what they see as a race for a unipolar world, we are deepening collaborative efforts through transparent multilateralism. These collaborations are the root of our partnerships and an example of our collective strengths. Our commitment to protecting global stability and security, investments in our long-standing allies and partners, and the belief that the best, most innovative ideas come from open societies remain the building blocks for our most successful relationships. In the face of a changing global security environment, the Australia-US-UK Enhanced Security Partnership, or AUKUS, is a generational opportunity that exemplifies our commitment to working with our allies and partners to positively contribute to security around the world, to include advancing a free and open, connected, prosperous, secure, and resilient Indo-Pacific. Announced in September 2021, AUKUS modernizes existing partnerships with two of the United States' longest-standing and most trusted allies. The initiative is built on two main pillars. Pillar 1, submarines. The first major initiative of AUKUS was the historic trilateral decision to support Australia in acquiring conventionally armed, nuclear-powered submarines at the earliest possible date. March 2023, the leaders of the three nations announced an optimal pathway to achieving this critical capability while setting the highest nonproliferation standard. In Pillar 2, we have advanced capabilities. Recognizing our deep defense ties built over decades, our three nations endeavored to streamline our defense collaboration among our nations while strengthening our ability to protect the sensitive technologies that underpin our security. We committed to trilateral cooperation on emerging tech areas such as quantum, AI and autonomy, hypersonics and counter-hypersonics, electronic warfare, undersea warfare, and cyber. It is through both pillars that with transparent collaboration, technological innovation, and interoperability, AUKUS will strengthen integrated deterrence in the Indo-Pacific and our competitive edge there and beyond. While AUKUS is built on these two pillars, it is an opportunity for us not only to strengthen security, but also to strengthen our partnership, an opportunity to reinvigorate economies, a commitment to the next generation, and ultimately a commitment to the future. We are strengthening Indo-Pacific security. We are centering AUKUS on the promotion of safety and security in the Indo-Pacific, as well as the setting of the highest nonproliferation standard and norms of advanced technology. Through diplomacy, we are reducing the risk of miscalculation, bolstering understanding, and reducing the likelihood of conflict. AUKUS is a key line of effort in this administration's national security, defense, and Indo-Pacific strategies, and we have been busy implementing both pillars of this partnership. The United States is a leader in risk reduction and deterrence, and through this partnership, we will not only stick to these national security principles, but help to strengthen these principles with our partners and beyond. Our shared vision of a world that is stable and prosperous, where all thrive, is rooted in our firm belief in the importance of collaboration to address shared challenges, innovation towards the future, and transparency. AUKUS is a partnership built upon what we stand for, not what we stand against. AUKUS partners have long histories of working together on defense and security issues, and have deep, enduring partnerships based on shared values. AUKUS is a natural extension of these partnerships. This enhanced trilateral security partnership is contributing to the peace, stability, and prosperity of the Indo-Pacific and, in turn, the world. Additionally, AUKUS is part of a broader effort to fortify an international system founded on multilateralism, weaving together our alliances and partnerships in mutually reinforcing ways across issues and continents. It is one of multiple partnerships the United States is pursuing to enhance cooperation on security issues in the region and around the world. AUKUS is one of multiple tools of statecraft that the United States and Australia and the UK are invested in to advance this vision. AUKUS reaffirms our global engagements. Pillar 1 and Pillar 2 efforts enable AUKUS partners, in collaboration with like-minded countries, to advance a stable and resilient Indo-Pacific and deter potential aggression more effectively than ever. And by investing in high-end defense capabilities and freedom of navigation through unimpeded sea lanes, as well as making future advancements in emerging technologies like AI and quantum, we support a more stable region, one where all nations are empowered to make their own sovereign decisions free from coercion, a world that centers on hope for the opportunity and prosperity of the future. AUKUS is strengthening partnerships and diplomacy. We recognize that there can be no prosperous future without a recognition of the past, including the acknowledgement that Australia and the UK are two of our deepest and long-standing relationships. In recent years, we each realize that while we have broad engagement across a variety of activities, our competitive edge can be further enhanced with a closer integration of our efforts across our three ecosystems, notably in the defense and innovation sectors. AUKUS partners are working to enhance our collaboration. In the defense sector and beyond, we are committed to creating new relationships in academia, industry, civil society, and more. In order for us to be innovative and for AUKUS to have long-term success, we recognize that we must take an inclusive approach, one that ensures we attract the best ideas, innovators, and strategists. We must break down barriers and stovepipes and challenge old approaches that led us to face a pacing challenge. We are pursuing these changes. In July, I had the privilege of sitting down with a group of experts from across the critical and emerging technology field, as well as trilateral government counterparts at Chatham House, to glean insights about how AUKUS can help us to break down these old silos to fully harness and power the power of increased collaboration. My biggest takeaway was that having a diversity of voices is going to be key to make the partnership all it can be. As our Australian colleagues would often say, this is only going to work if the enterprise is whole of nation on all sides. I also think it will be critical to channel the insights of our best and brightest in industry. While in London, I conferred with some of the world's foremost experts on quantum technology. They provided key insights about the need to think about not just the advanced capabilities that we produce today, but the education systems that produce the experts of tomorrow. We must think about how we are deepening linkages between our education and workforce development systems to ensure that we meet the moment for AUKUS, creating a truly organic and innovative ecosystem among our 3 countries. The education realm provides endless opportunities to explore trilateral collaboration. We are therefore increasing our outreach to a variety of audiences, ensuring that we put public support of this long-term endeavor at the forefront. My team traveled to Australia in September for just these sorts of conversations. My AUKUS senior advisor, Matt Steinhelfer, who's here with me today, met with academics and local government, startups and major companies, civil society members and legislators to ensure that we are hearing from the widest variety of voices to understand what a broad cross-section of stakeholders desire from this partnership. There will inevitably be challenges in realizing the full potential of AUKUS, but bolstering public support through diverse consultations and engagements will be critical. We are investing in our advancement. The AUKUS partnership partners are resolute in the importance of working together to meet the inevitable challenges raised. We also realize that when it comes to advanced capabilities and military applications of emerging and critical technologies, some of the blueprint for ethical and responsible use is yet to be drawn. In this respect, we are making progress within a framework based on norms of responsibility and have ensured that AUKUS works reflects our shared values and international norms. Just earlier this month, Australia and the UK joined a diverse cross-regional group of 45 other states in endorsing our political declaration on responsible military use of AI and autonomy. The declaration provides a novel, concrete, and actionable proposal for developing a shared understanding of responsible behavior that applies across the range of military applications of AI, regardless of a system's functionality or scope of potential use. This initiative addresses the crucial need for international dialogue on military use of AI that goes beyond just weapons or the use of AI capabilities in weapon systems. This declaration is intended to be the beginning of the effort and not the end unto itself. And we are moving to the implementation phase of this effort, where we will convene endorsing states to discuss how to implement these practices for the development, deployment, and use of AI in a responsible and lawful manner. The declaration will provide a foundation for collaboration and exchanges, such as sharing best practices, expert-level exchanges, and capacity-building activities. So let me be clear. AUKUS is about advancing shared military capabilities with partners and allies. Separately, there are robust fora for norms development and arms control. We look to ensure that norms developed by responsible governments through vigorous debate in these fora are reflected in the work that we do under AUKUS. This is the democratic vision for how new technologies can be responsibly and transparently integrated into our security and deterrence policies. In this respect, and in our approach to AUKUS, this open and vigorous debate about how our shared future is critical and the source of our strength is important. For too long, these issues were discussed in narrow circles, lacking diversity and the full expression of our citizens' ideas and experiences. However, as I have said, AUKUS represents an enterprise that will draw on a diverse group of people and their ingenious, transformational, generational enterprise. AUKUS is about investments in multiple economies and the next generation. Our commitment to innovation will require an investment in not just the technologies or defense needs, but the people and the variety of voices that make those investments possible. Together, we have an opportunity to invest in our respective economies and in the next generation, helping to bring the best and the brightest into our labor force. Pillar 2 is building on the AUKUS partners' respective defense innovation ecosystems, industries, and workforce to accelerate and deepen our joint development and delivery of advanced military capabilities. AUKUS holds the opportunity to elevate our economies, including our industrial bases, in new ways, whether it's STEM education, apprenticeships, people-to-people exchanges, skilled labor education, or blue-collar industries. As President Biden has said, AUKUS presents us with big opportunities for recruitment, retention, and growth. I was lucky enough to see these opportunities firsthand when a few weeks ago I visited the Apprentice School at Newport News Shipbuilding in Virginia. The Apprentice School is the country's preeminent school for shipbuilding and apprentice trades. There I was able to learn about their investment in not only their current students, but their outreach in attracting students for STEM starting as early as pre-K. Speaking with current students and faculty, it was clear they are excited and invigorated by the skills they are learning. They're ready to innovate and were already asking questions about how to be the best future stewards of AUKUS. While I was in Newport News, I met with our dedicated men and women working on the shipyards. Their commitment to excellence was palpable. They are proud to be working on AUKUS, and as one team member said, they know our Navy fights for our freedom, and they believe they deliver our freedom through the work they do on our ships every day. More broadly, AUKUS is strengthening the U.S. submarine industrial base by growing our industrial workforce and expanding submarine supply chains. These investments in our industrial base and workforce are critical to contributing to a free and open Indo-Pacific and unimpeded sea lines. As we continue to train here at home, we are also integrating Australians, including the Australian ship submariners training in our nuclear propulsion schools, and the potential for future exchanges across the ecosystem. AUKUS is not a 6 or 12-month partnership. Rather, we are making an enduring commitment. These opportunities will help to recruit and retain individuals at multiple levels of U.S. industry and will build on our leadership and commitment to excellence in service of creating a prosperous next generation. It is a commitment to the future. And in short, AUKUS is defense, security, and diplomacy for the future. It's being unafraid to tackle new challenges, an opportunity to engage citizens in robust democracies, and offer a clear choice about our shared future. AUKUS is about enhancing our security, capabilities, and deterrence in a responsible and transparent manner, in line with our long-held shared values, in sharp contrast to those who are engaging in reckless and non-transparent military buildup outside the view of their citizens. AUKUS is about investment. As partners, we are committed to building new ecosystems, supporting the next generation, embracing our values, and innovating for the free and prosperous future we all deserve. We are making the moment, and we are looking forward to continuing to share it with all of you. Thank you for listening, and I look forward to our discussion on these issues.
Madam Ambassador, thank you very much. You laid out a very compelling and a very positive and broad vision for AUKUS, I think much broader than I've ever heard before. And so I take your point that AUKUS is about not just what we stand against, but what we stand for. But I have to begin with a question related to the PRC, I think. So China and its sympathizers, they're criticizing AUKUS. But when you look at it, Beijing itself has been fairly opaque in its civil nuclear storage and use. It's been building up its nuclear and missile programs even before AUKUS existed. And so are AUKUS partners doing enough to counter the Chinese narrative, to highlight what the PRC has been doing? And in general, is there a role for AUKUS in raising awareness of the threat from the PRC and the challenge that it posed, nuclear and otherwise?
Yeah, thanks for the question. I think the important thing to keep in mind is AUKUS is about about making sure the Indo-Pacific is safe, secure, and prosperous. And that's how we have always seen it, and that's how we continue to push it. We don't tend to focus on any particular country. We don't say it's against any particular country. It's about making sure that there's open sea lanes and that we're able to work very closely with two countries that we've had very long relationships with. And also, as I said, there's so much that we can do on the Pillar 2. So that's really the focus of our effort, is really, starting out with Pillar 1 with the submarines and Pillar 2 with the advanced technologies, and to keep the Indo-Pacific safe. I can say that, we really value, obviously, transparency. One of the things that I think I mentioned several times in my presentation is how transparent we are.
Right.
And that's the key. And of course, we want all countries to be transparent in what they do. Every country has a right to define their own defense needs. But this is about really keeping the Indo-Pacific safe and open, and being very transparent about what we're doing each step along the way.
All right, thank you. So you mentioned the distinction between Pillar 1 and Pillar 2 and your interest in Pillar 2. And so although my colleagues here at the Scowcroft Center and the Atlantic Council, we're obviously happy to see progress on Pillar 1, I think the thing that really gets us excited as strategists is the defense technology cooperation and the interoperability elements that come in Pillar 2. And so we're very interested. And the challenge that we often face, though, is when we bring up AUKUS to people, the first thing people say is, oh, the submarine deal, right? And then they don't even really necessarily understand Pillar 2. So can you tell us a little bit more about Pillar 2? Is there a way that we can describe it that's maybe more compelling to a broader audience, that's going to stick in people's minds, like the submarine example for Pillar 1? And are there some more specific things maybe you could tell us about what's going on in Pillar 2 that might get people excited? I know you alluded to a few in your remarks.
Yeah, I think the one way to think about it is of course, I said Pillar 1 is about the submarines, as you said. But Pillar 2 is also, there's a lot that can go on with that, and I kind of outlined a lot of that. And keep in mind, when you think about Pillar 2, think about emerging technologies. The thing everyone's focusing on is AI. Everybody gets AI. GPT started, and so everybody started to realize what AI is and the advantages of AI. So that's how one way I try to pull them in, is I try to mention AI, because everybody's like, okay, I kind of get this now. And so really looking at AI and other technologies, as I mentioned, quantum, cyber, hypersonics, these are things that the three countries want to develop amongst themselves and make the military more capable, want to find out how we can use these emerging technologies to strengthen our relationships in many ways, in many activities in terms of just strengthen our military capabilities. So I think the way to think about it is you have Pillar 1, which is the submarines, you have Pillar 2, and ways in which the three countries can work together to integrate these emerging technologies into our militaries, and how we can make these militaries more interoperable, and really just even better in terms of what we want to do in making the Indo-Pacific safe, secure, and prosperous. So think about, kind of get the AI that gets people, and then you kind of
Sure.
grab, okay, think about quantum. Quantum's still very confusing. But then you start bringing some of these other cyber, okay, people start to get that, and you think about, and the other thing you have to realize is a lot of these are also very new.
Right.
Like I said, people kind of get AI because they're finally, okay, I can see it, I know what it is. So you also have to compete with the fact that there's still a lot of confusion about what is quantum, how is electronic warfare going to fit in, how is cyber going to fit. So there's a lot of things, because it's emerging. They're emerging technologies. I mean, there's a lot that has not been done yet. So that adds to some of the confusion. But if people just think about how we use emerging technologies to strengthen our military capabilities, make it more interoperable amongst the three countries, and strengthen all these other things that come with it, as I mentioned, like workforce development, those kind of things, I would just put it that way and not start with things that may seem more confusing.
Sure, and that emerging technology really seems to be the key phrase there, right? It's emerging, so these are things that are not even, yet mature, and being on the very cutting edge. I think that's a compelling way to explain it. So one of the things that we've been talking about at the Scowcroft Center, and actually a couple of our fellows actually produced a piece related to this question, is the importance of the cooperation between the executive branch officials, the legislatures, and the private industries in these three partners to realize the promise of AUKUS. So can you tell us a little bit more about the measures that the AUKUS partners are taking, including the United States, to streamline the defense trade standards and to adopt new shared standards for goals while still protecting our technology?
Yeah, one of the things that was very apparent as we started to talk more and more about Pillar 2 amongst the three countries is that, in order to have ways in which we could work together very well and share information, share technology, is to find ways that we can share things very quickly. And so as a result of that, we recognize that we need to work on some of our export controls that we have. And we already have really good relationship with the two countries, as I said. But we wanted to find a way that we can share information in a more streamlined process, a faster process. So what that meant was all three countries had to look into their processes of how they do things to see how all three of us can work together through our legislatures, through our administration, and of course, private sector is going to have to be a part of that because so much of what's being done, particularly emerging technologies, is also done in the private sector, so there has to be a public-private partnerships or things like that. But we all realized that we needed to do things to make this actually work. So even as we are still figuring out what these emerging technologies are, have to figure out how we're going to work together on them, we have to make sure that we have a process, a streamlined process, that we can actually do that. And so right now there's a lot of discussion happening on the Hill right now in terms of legislation that we need to adopt to make all this happen. And similarly, we're working with the UK and Australia to have comparable protections so that we can make sure that even as we streamline the process for exchanging technology and information, that we also make sure that it's still secure.
Right.
And that we make sure that these are not things that can land in the hands of folks in countries that we don't want them to. So it's a really good exchange that we're having. It's really positive that we're having these conversations with our two partners in this because we really are working together at the very early stages to make it happen.
Sure. Mm-hmm. Well, you sounded a very important note there because I know that there's a lot of concern that we have about the potential for PRC espionage, particularly on the technology front. The idea that some of these cutting-edge emerging tech innovations that we're making, then China could steal them to get ahead. And so, anything more on that line in terms of how we combat that while still maintaining this balance of the openness and the exchange that you're looking for?
Yeah, I mean, we are thinking about that a lot. Think about in terms of overall, how do we make sure that the great technologies that we're going to be developing and working on together is that we feel confident that we will be able, the three countries, to get to a point where we have a lot more ease and streamline the process of working together and exchanging technologies and exchanging information. We are working on it. I'm confident we're going to get that, but at the same time, during all these conversations, we're also keeping in mind protections and preventions and making sure that we, like I said, the technology doesn't get in the hands of countries and individuals that we don't want to. So I can say that that's something that we think about all the time, and is a part of the discussions that we are having right now with our colleagues in Australia and the UK and on the Hill as well.
All right, Thank you. So you mentioned toward the end of your remarks, and maybe even woven throughout, the relationship between the success of AUKUS and the workforce, right? And so how do you see, more specifically, AUKUS impacting the workforce? Do we have the capabilities and the capacity right now in the U.S., Australia, and the UK to make the most of AUKUS? It sounds like we're not there yet. So can you tell us a little bit more about what we're going to do to build up that capacity and the capability in the workforce?
Yeah, actually, all three leaders, when they met earlier this year, one of the things that was highlighted when they met in California, one of the things that was highlighted by all three countries' leadership is that workforce development is a big part of what we're going to be doing. And there's a clear recognition, as I said, looking at AUKUS as so much more than just the submarines and even the emerging technologies. It's the relationship that will be built. It's the engagements with civil society, private sector, academia from all three countries. And so as we work to develop the submarines that are going to be there and all the emerging technologies, we're going to need qualified people. We're going to need a qualified workforce. So it's going to be shipbuilders, but it's also going to be those working in all the fields related to Pillar 1 and Pillar 2. As I said, I had a really good visit at the apprentice school. Very impressed by the students there and what they're doing. They have a recognition of what AUKUS is. They know what it is. As I said, they already work with pre-K They have a school that they are engaged with. So there's a recognition that AUKUS is going to be for here a long time. We're at the very early stages. This is going to be going on for decades. And so we know that for this to be successful, we have to invest in our workforce here in the U.S., but also in Australia as well as the UK. Part of the AUKUS process is going to be some Australians coming to the U.S., to our schools. Same is going to happen with the UK and Australia. There's going to be a development amongst all three countries to develop our workforce, but also individually. So that's already been seen as a very important part of it. And we are already working with our princess schools and realizing that the next generation of young people who are in pre-K are also going to be working on AUKUS. And so we see this as a much bigger thing that we have to continue to develop a workforce. But not just, as I said, in the princess schools or shipbuilding, but in emerging technologies as well. So we need to really be focusing on that.
Well, I think you may have found another compelling way to explain the broader context of AUKUS is it starts in kindergarten. I think that's great. No, that's really a very compelling and broad vision for AUKUS. So I've really abused my moderator privilege to ask you a whole series of questions, and so we do have a tremendous audience full of experts and interested parties here, many of whom I know personally and have already expressed their interest in asking a question. And then also we've got a really tremendous virtual turnout as well, and so I see that some of the virtual questions are already streaming in. So just a reminder, if you are in the virtual audience, askac.org is where you should submit your questions. And so when we get the mic set up here in the room to ask the first question, I will ask a virtual one from someone you know, one of your distinguished mentees over the course of your career, Jess Taylor, one of our non-resident fellows, has a specific question. And this is an interesting one. So she says that there's been some calls lately among Indo-Pacific observers to service the subs that result from AUKUS in South Korea. In an effort to foster greater interalliance cooperation, rather than having to have them be serviced all the way out of the region. And so, of course, these are nuclear subs, and South Korea doesn't have a nuclear submarine force. So, is this sort of thing a possibility that some degree of maintenance could be conducted in South Korean or other ports, or are they going to have to go back to one of the AUKUS partners?
Actually, that's something that I think we haven't really focused on a lot. I mean, I think obviously the natural thing is we're going to be doing thing amongst the three countries. I mean, so that's going to be predominantly the focus. And so, of course, we're going to be making sure that we work with our Australian colleagues to develop the skills and what they would need, of course, to do maintenance. Of course, we'll be doing maintenance as well as the UK. That's the real focus right now. I'm not sure that we've been thinking about going outside to another country. That would be further down the line if that was even even a consideration. But good question, but that's not really what we're thinking of right now. We're really thinking about the three countries. Yeah.
Early days yet, but Jess is a strategic thinker. She's always thinking of a few chess moves ahead. All right. Well, so let's go to the audience. I think we got the first one queued up for Catherine, and then we'll go through. And I know there's several others that we've got lined up as well. Please introduce yourself, too.
Yes, hi. Catherine Lewandowska here. I'm with Forward Defense at the Atlantic Council. Thank you very much, Undersecretary, for joining us today and for the great remarks, and congratulations on the great strides the department has made. I'm curious to know if you see success in collaboration on emerging technology between these three countries. Is the administration considering extending those privileges to what's left of the Quad or other partners and allies to do the same?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of the things that I mentioned, I wanted, and thanks for asking the question because I want to reiterate that is, the two pillars, right? So the pillar one on nuclear subs is really something that's amongst the three countries. But pillar two is something that we do see eventually something that can involve other countries. I think right now what we want to do is make sure that we have a good, solid basis amongst the three countries in terms of the emerging technologies and, where we are with emerging technologies 2-3 years from now, how they might be integrated into our military and how we can work together and focus on interoperability, issues like that. But eventually, we hope to get to a point, and we will, I assume, get to a point where we can also work with other countries. We will we will decide later what the criteria and things like that will be in terms of who we also work with. But that is something that is a possibility.
All right, thank you. And so we're going to go to Harlan Ullman next, but before we get him queued up with the mic, I'll ask a virtual question. Several questions here actually that are coming on space, and so I'm going to kind of consolidate them. One of them is asked by an anonymous individual. One of them is asked by Michael Novikov. And basically, let me sort of summarize if you could talk a little bit more about, is there a space domain cooperation element or initiative going on in AUKUS right now, or plan that you can talk a little bit more about? Are there some next steps in the space realm that fit within Pillar 2 that you'd like to discuss, that you were able to discuss?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of went through the 6 technologies that we're looking at now. So what I would say is there's 2 answers. One is it's not right now in the 6 that I mentioned in terms of the areas of work, but also looking at different domains. Not at current, but as I said, we are at the very early stages of AUKUS. And so, we are going to be developing the next 5, 10, 15 years ways in which we can work together on military issues, how we can strengthen our capabilities together. And so I always say to people at this early stage, we will see where it goes as we go further, and as we, as it becomes firmer and we know a lot more of our answers, we'll see. We'll see. I mean, there may be possibilities there as well.
Oh, that's a great answer. It's very helpful. I think when one of the constructs that you emphasize about Pillar 2 is this is very emerging space, right? And so Pillar 2 has a lot of space potentially to, so to speak, to add. Excuse the unintentional pun there. So now let's go to Harlan.
Madam Ambassador, thank you for coming. I'm Harlan Ullman, a senior advisor here at the Atlantic Council. And as a former naval officer, may I address you as Admiral, because that's where my question is going to reside. I am deeply skeptical about Pillar 1 for reasons I will get into. My question will have to do about organization. I think you and Marcus have brought out why Pillar 2 is the heart of this, and that's what's liable to work. But my skepticism, as a former naval officer, Pillar 1, it takes decades, not years, as you know, to establish a nuclear infrastructure. Australia has none. Second, the U.S. Navy shipbuilding experience has not been distinguished. And third, both Newport News, Huntington Ingalls, and General Dynamics are overstretched. USS Boise, a Los Angeles attack submarine, spent 6 years ashore before she was going to be overhauled. It took Hyman Rickover to get the nuclear power program in place. I would have preferred if you went with diesel-electric air-into-propulsion submarines, but the most obscene words in the Navy are diesel-electric submarines, as you also know. So my question is, on the AUKUS side, submarine side, who is the Hyman Rickover? Who is the CEO where Joe Biden or the next president go and say, what the hell's happening? And who's the CEO on the Pillar 2 side? Or do we have this sort of whole-of-government approach where everybody has some responsibility but nobody has authority?
I would say overall, it's certainly as I said, it's a whole society approach, but, we have the administration right now, of course, led by President Biden, who's very obviously wants this to succeed, and an NSC that wants to succeed, Department of Defense, Department of State, NSA, DOE, Commerce. We have the whole of government and the administration side really pushing for this and really wanting it to work. So I would say we're led by the president, and we are all committed to this, and we all want to make this work. So in terms of the challenges, but I want to say that. So we have that for the whole of government, but I also want to say that we also are very much intent on bringing in, as I said, society. So the whole of government, it's a whole society effort, and it's all being led really by the White House, and then branching out and bringing in other entities. We've had a number of meetings with industry, as I said. We are talking to academia. And so, we are bringing in different parts of the U.S. government, and UK and Australia will do the same thing, and kind of bring it down and have people come together. So I see it more like that in terms of how we work together. on the challenges, those are all very valuable, viable issues that you brought out. But I think, we're seeing this much more positively in what we can do. I think that's one of the advantages. I mean, the nuclear sub, we have to work with them, and we're developing plans. We have lots of meetings. We're meeting trilaterally on a regular basis. There was just a number of meetings this month in Australia. There's a lot of engagements, both on the Pillar 1 and Pillar 2 side. Pillar 1 with the International Atomic Energy Agency. On Pillar 3, we have things like the Defense Trade Working Group. We have things called ASEG, AKEG. These are groups of trilaterals getting together to talk about Pillar 1, Pillar 2. What I can say is the energy is there. We are really working hard. We are really working trilaterally to make this work. We understand that there are challenges. There will be challenges all along the way because that's the nature of new things. You have to educate about the process, what we're doing, why it's important, but you also have to make sure that there's the energy, the funding to keep it going. And I think, like I said, we're at the very early stages, but there's a lot of energy, there's a lot of interest from Australia to make this happen. So there will certainly be challenges. There are challenges that you raise. Some reality checks will come along the way. We've already started to face reality checks and figuring out how we're going to deal with these things. So the best I could say is the momentum is there, the interest is there. Our leaders, all three leaders, are very interested in it. Our administration interested in it. We have a lot of talks going on the Hill right now to push it forward. We've got civil society interested. We've got industry very interested in this effort. So there's a lot of people that want to see this as a glass half full and find how we, like many other things, how this case, like many other things that we have challenged in America, in our history, that we will find a way to make this work as well. And that's the most I can say in 2023. I don't know. I feel like I always look at things, and there's two ways. We have our leadership structure, but I also look at in terms of, making things work as a community, making things work together. So I always think more in terms of how we as a society are going to make it work rather than just one person doing everything, if that makes sense.
All right, and I see John has already taken the mic, and John is the co-author actually of the article I mentioned. So I would like to give John the floor.
Thank you, Ambassador. Thank you for being here. John Watts from the Atlantic Council, and I'm going to ask a question kind of aligned with the article, at least in tangent. First of all, I want to say I'm just excited to hear the emphasis you put on Pillar 2. I really do think that is, while Pillar 1 is incredibly important, I think the capacity and the growth within Pillar 2 is far more exciting and more beneficial in the long term. To that end, Pillar 2 is really going to rely on the industrial bases of all three countries integrating and becoming more seamless. As you talked about the importance of the integrity of the systems, especially with the high-end technology and ensuring that all components are trusted. What steps could we take in the near term to make sure that we're investing in the elements of that supply chain, of that industrial base, to make sure they are resilient and trusted, and we can ensure that there are no kind of weak steps along the way, or weak links in the chain, I guess, to ensure that we can get the newer technologies and the capacity to enable them for our future capability.
Yeah, and thanks for the question, and thanks for using the word seamless, because I look at things in terms of how we're going to work together in that way. I think the best way is to continue to communicate between and this is true for each government individually. So what I say about the U.S., I think it's true for all of them. Is we're in a process, and so is the UK and Australia, in a process now of figuring out how do we develop legislation, administrative agreements, whatever they might be, to have comparable systems. And so, a lot of this is new in terms of what we're doing. A lot of legislation that's happening now, we're trying to break some new innovative ways to do that. But I think it's going to be really important that as we do that, we are very engaged with industry, because so much in the industry, and also academia as well, is going to be a part of Pillar 2 and how we develop Pillar 2. There's no way we're going to do this without the industry being involved. There's no way we could be successful without academia and the workforce, not everyone being involved. But in terms of this, as we break new ground and we do new things because of AUKUS, which is a good thing to try to do these things new, we have to stay very much involved so that we understand, you understand what is happening on the Hill in terms of how we're trying to make sure that it is seamless, but also systems that will protect information and technology. And we have to learn from you and others in industry about what do you do, how do you do it, and what have you done in the past that's been successful. So there's going to need to be a lot of engagement because it's going to be very important, and this is true for export controls overall, but it's going to be important as we break new ground that there's an understanding between the government and industry about what we're doing, why we're doing it, where the usual questions about we're not trying to prevent people and companies from doing their work or making money or anything like that. It's about protecting the important technology that's going to be shared between us, the UK, and Australia. And there has to be an education process of that so that everyone understands that, they accept it, and recognize what the real underlying goal is, and how it's in everyone's interest to make sure that it's done correctly and that everyone abides by whatever is decided. But that's going to be important because it is new and industry has lots of questions, and as we develop and as emerging technology develop and as industry gets involved in different parts of emerging technology and we try to integrate it into what we're doing in AUKUS, there's going to be a lot. And so the kind of engagements that we've been trying to do already and we have done with industry, we're going to have to keep doing that. And we want to hear from academia, industry, civil society, these kind of events with questions and what do you decide? Because a lot of it, as I said, is we're just new, we're figuring it out, but decisions have to be made. And so it's going to be important for us to have these conversations that we understand what you're thinking and you understand how we are going forward.
So one of the things that I think you've mentioned several times now that really comes across as compelling to me is the emphasis here on the need for a close connection between the governments, private industry, the educational foundations and sector, and then the other non-government research institutions. We're all working closely together, right? And there's some suspicion of like government and industry being a little bit too cozy, or think tanks being too cozy with industry. But I think you've emphasized something here that in order for this to work, there really has to be a lot of communication and a lot of connectivity and a degree of trust. I would say is what you're arguing for. So on the subject of trust, though, I want to ask a question here from the virtual audience that I think is right up your alley as someone who's very, very much a leader in the nonproliferation community and steeped in the questions of nonproliferation arms control. And so Joe Gould from Politico asks, how do you respond to Chinese criticism, there it is, that Chinese criticism I mentioned earlier, that AUKUS upends the intent of the Nuclear Nonproliferation Treaty? This was recently voiced at the IAEA Board of Governors meeting. So I'm sure you've dealt with this question before. So how do you respond?
Yes, there's so many answers, but I'll just be very brief. Australia is not a nuclear weapon state. Australia is not going to develop nuclear weapons. They're not going to enrich uranium. They're not going to reprocess anything. They are going to continue to be a non-nuclear weapon state. And we have said that for 2 years, and it hasn't changed. They have no desire. They are a party to the Nuclear Nonproliferation Treaty. They've been a party for years. They have no intent on developing nuclear weapons. We are not giving them nuclear weapons. We're giving them nuclear-powered submarines. Nuclear-powered submarines are allowed under the Nuclear Nonproliferation Treaty, so that's not a violation. Third, there are a lot of, I can't even say how many meetings that the three countries have had with the International Atomic Energy Agency to do safeguards on any type of, everything that's going to be going on to make sure that no nuclear material is diverted, that all declared nuclear material is being used as it said, as it's going to be declared. So the IAEA is very involved. We've been having lots of conversations with them. The DG Grossi, the Director General for Grossi from the IAEA, has come out with a couple of reports already, saying that, affirming that these submarines are allowed under the Nuclear Nonproliferation Treaty. He's been to Australia. He said he's already had conversations with them. We are being very transparent. We report. We are always doing these kind of things, talking about what we're doing. Australia has done a lot of engagements in its region to remind countries that they're not going to develop nuclear weapons. So we've been saying it ad nauseum for 2 years now. And we know that the PRC continues to attack us and at the IAEA Governors Board, at the Nuclear Nonproliferation Treaty, and every other chance they get. But the story is the same and hasn't changed, and it won't change. Australia does not want to develop nuclear weapons. And they're also part of the Treaty of Rarotonga, which is a weapons-free zone treaty in which they attest that they're not going to develop nuclear weapons.
So a very specific and detailed answer, but also much more polite than the one I would have used if the PRC were asking me that question, given how much they've done to aid and abet, of course, North Korea's nuclear weapons program. But that's a separate topic for another day. We hope to have you back. Maybe we could talk about that. So that's about all the time we have. Unfortunately, I know there are many more questions in the room, and we'll have a little time to talk afterwards as well. But I do want to keep things on schedule. There's just a few things I wanted to highlight from your remarks for the group, and maybe you'd like to let us know if those resonate. One is the phrase "the whole of society," not just whole of government, but again, all these different elements working together and trusting each other to make AUKUS work. AUKUS starts in kindergarten, hopefully is one of the bumper stickers that comes from this meeting as well, and I think that's very compelling. And then the idea of this emerging tech is really being what Pillar 2 is all about, is thinking about things that are truly emerging, that are cutting edge, that we may not even know what the most important technologies are that will come out of this Pillar 2 process, because no one may have thought of them yet. The person who thought of them may be in kindergarten, right? And then lastly, I think I think it's again really important to emphasize what you said. On one hand, that this is a very positive and compelling broad vision, but at the same time, of course, it does take into account the fact that this is such a security challenge that we're facing from the PRC. And of course, I can't leave out North Korea. So, any closing thoughts for us, Madam Ambassador?
I guess first of all, thank you for inviting me, and thank you for the questions. It's always good to talk about AUKUS. I know there's still a lot of people that don't know much about AUKUS, may not have an interest in AUKUS right now, but it's
we'll
always, but I enjoy talking about it because of it's more than just the submarines. As we've said, the submarines are a fundamental aspect and a very important part of AUKUS. Pillar 2, obviously, and we have a lot of interest, obviously, in Pillar 2 and what it can do, and kind of looking forward to the future. But then there's all these other things, workforce development, work with civil society, working with academia, the whole of society, the whole of government, each one of the, having, we're working with the legislatures right now on the Hill, very much interest, obviously, administration. There's just a lot of communication and a lot of engagements. And that's one of the most positive things I think about AUKUS is what it can do, not just what it has to do in terms of the Indo-Pacific region for peace, prosperity, and security, but all the ways in which we can work together in many aspects with all three countries, and then hopefully in the future with other countries, as we expand Pillar 2. So always happy to engage. We have a great leadership working on this. We will have challenges, with the submarines, and we expect that, and we, like we always do, we just kind of deal with them as they come, and, these are things that's going to be with us for a long time. But I think we have to, continue to do it and keep pushing the interest and, look at the glass half full in terms of what we're trying to do. So just thanks for giving me an opportunity to express all of that. Just want to thank my team as well from State Department who are doing such great work on this. So
Thank you, Madam Ambassador.